the Anunnaki, and the sacred science of the Black God. Before I've read some very interesting remarks and heard some interesting remarks regarding my taking up this subject, the Anunnaki. I want to address some of that before we go into the details of the book, if I may. For those who believe that your brother is new to this subject, I published this book, The Book of God, an encyclopedia of proof that the Black man is God. I published it in 1998. You do the math. In this book, this encyclopedia of proof that the Black man is God, I document and discuss the Anunnaki in here. And I cite Zechariah Sitchin in 1998. I appreciated Zechariah Sitchin, but what I quote from Zechariah Sitchin is what I was able to verify in other sources. So I was writing about the Anunnaki in 1998. I published this book, Black Arabia and the African Origin of Islam. I published this book in 2009. And in this book, I go even deeper into the Anunnaki. See, I'm a trained historian of religion. This is what I do. Now, I've been writing on this subject for decades, literally decades. I have been writing on the Anunnaki. So, please stop with the Brother Wesley is jumping on a new bandwagon. No, I'm not the Johnny come lately to the subject of the Anunnaki. I have been doing Anunnaki scholarship for 30 years now. Some say, what's your credential, Brother Wesley, to write about the Anunnaki? Now, that's very interesting that would be said, because the Anunnaki, the popular Anunnaki narrative, is dominated by Zechariah Sitchin's interpretation of the Anunnaki. Not the scholarly narrative, but the popular narrative, the popular conversation surrounding the Anunnaki is dominated by Zechariah Sitchin. The whole popular conversation on the Anunnaki defers to Zechariah Sitchin, but Zechariah Sitchin was no Sumerologist, no Assyriologist. Zechariah Sitchin got his degree from the University of London in economics. He was a journalist in Israel. Then he moved to New York. And with his economics degree, he helped run a shipping company. His professional training took him nowhere near Sumerology. Graham Hancock confesses to being neither a scientist or an archaeologist. He too was a journalist, yet he is the leading figure in alternative archaeology. So neither of them are required to have any training in the relevant fields, yet they are deferred to on these subjects. On my degree behind me, which I'm not going to grab down, but on that doctorate degree from the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, the degree is in Near Eastern Studies. I got the doctorate from the Department of Near Eastern Studies. My specific area was Islamic studies, but I was trained in the Department of Near Eastern Studies, and in that department is ancient Mesopotamian studies, ancient biblical studies, and my dissertation involved ancient biblical texts as well as ancient Islamic texts. So I'm closer in training to the subject than Zechariah Sitchin and others who are writing about it. And I'm only making a point that if they are not disqualified from writing on the subject, why seek to disqualify your brother? First, let's clear this up. Dear family, please stop regurgitating the Zechariah Sitchin era of fiction. The term Anunnaki does not mean those who from heaven to earth came. Please, family, stop saying that. It never meant that, and Zechariah Sitchin never demonstrated that. He just said it. And here is the Sumerian writing of the term. He never showed the grammar behind his reading of this term, how he parsed it to get those who from heaven to earth came. He never showed a grammar. He never explained. And it's because the grammar don't work. You cannot get those who from heaven to earth came. You cannot get that from the Sumerian writing. Family, don't take my word for it. There are 4 foundational studies on the term Anunnaki. 4 of them. They don't agree. They're independent. You can avail yourself to them and study the issue, and you will see that Zechariah Sitchin had absolutely no warrant to interpret the term Anunnaki as those who from heaven to earth came. See, he imposed that reading on the Sumerian because he was trying to support his extraterrestrial hypothesis, his wrong Nibiru hypothesis. But in terms of the four studies, in terms of understanding the term Anunnaki, avail yourself to Van Soden, Babylonian groups of gods, Igigu and Anunnaku. Avail yourself to Falkenstein's the Anuna in the Sumerian tradition. I put them on the record so you can go get them. Avail yourself to Kynast, Igigu, and Anunnaku according to the Akkadian sources, and avail yourself to Van Soden's the Igigu gods in the old Babylonian period. All of these studies analyze the etymology and the understanding of the term Anunnaki, and it derives from God An. It means offspring of An, or princely offspring. The progeny of the god An. An is the god. But you will see in those studies that there is no hint, no possibility of deriving from this Sumerian term the definition, the meaning, those who from heaven to earth came. But Zechariah Sitchin wanted to ground his Nibiru thesis, his narrative that the Anunnaki gods, the black gods of ancient Sumeria, ancient Mesopotamia. Yeah, I said black. Now I'm going to go get at that black. Zechariah Sitchin wanted us to believe that the Anunnaki gods weren't black gods from Arabia, which they were, but that they were some other kind of gods from the planet, an exoplanet, Nibiru. Exoplanet meaning a planet outside of a solar system. I heard it said in defense of Zechariah Sitchin, I heard it said recently that the Enuma Elish, supposedly the Babylonian creation story, but the text that Zechariah Sitchin, the ancient Mesopotamian text that Zechariah Sitchin claims to be relying on, I heard it said recently that the Enuma Elish says Agigi, a group of Anunnaki gods, that the Enuma Elish says Agigi were working on Mars, building a breakaway civilization. It is claimed that this is what the Enuma Elish says. See, this is a point. With due respect, and it is Ramadan, so I must keep it Ramadan. But this conversation suffers from a lack of rigor, lack of precision in our scholarship, and we are too free to just make stuff up. The claim that the Enuma Elish says that these Anunnaki gods were working on Mars, building a breakaway civilization. Look, family, I have several editions of the Enuma Elish, the so-called Babylonian creation story. I have Alexander Heidel's edition and translation. And here's the Babylonian Genesis, the story of creation. I have that published in James Pritchard's The Ancient Near East, an anthology of texts and pictures. There is the Enuma Elish here, this edition. And I have, and I much prefer, Lambert's very robust edition, Babylonian creation myths. Now, I have these editions, and I can say, as a matter of fact, nowhere in the Enuma Elish does it say the Anunnaki were working on Mars, building a breakaway civilization. We say stuff because we assume that most of the people listening don't have the materials. And we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't do that. The Anunnaki, if you want to understand the Anunnaki, familiarize yourself and get deep into the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the supreme wisdom, the root teaching. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teachings are a root teaching, and his root teaching illuminates all the branches of knowledge. It is the root teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Hear me, family. It is the root teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad that is the key to interpreting the Enuma Elish of the ancient Babylonians. It is the root teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad that is the key to interpreting the Atra Hashis, the story of the ancient Mesopotamians describing the creation of man. Zechariah Sitchin got it wrong. His interpretation of that text is wrong. To fully understand that text, the Atra Hashis, study Message to the Black Man by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and you will understand how it is the story behind, the meaning behind the story of the Lulu that was created by the gods. What gods and who is Lulu? I named this book The Anunnaki and the Sacred Science of the Black God. I heard it said that Anunnaki doesn't mean a particular race. That people who say the Anunnaki are black or the Anunnaki are white, that they are wrong. Well, saying Anunnaki are white is wrong. Because the truth of the matter is that the Anunnaki were emphatically black gods. This is the god Anu, the king of the gods, on the left. He was in Sumerian the Sumerian term Dinger-Gi, black god. On the right, his firstborn son, Enki. He was Dinger-Gi, black god. These are the paramount Anunnaki. The Anunnaki derived from Anu. And in Sumerian, they are Dinger-Gi, black god. You have to understand, and I'll close here. You have to understand the ontology of divinity according to the ancient Mesopotamians. According to say that the Anunnaki gods are not black, it screams that we need to study a little deeper. We certainly have to study beyond Zechariah Sitchin. Because, see, when we study the ontology of divinity, according to the ancient Sumerians or ancient Mesopotamians, we learn that these Dinger-Gi, the black gods, that the god in Mesopotamia, his flesh was compared to the mesu, the wood of the mesu tree. And the wood of the mesu tree was luminous brown. So the flesh of the god was compared to the wood of the mesu tree, but the skin of the god was compared to the timber, the bark of the Kiskanu tree. The Kiskanu tree is the black sacred tree, a sacred tree that the ancient Mesopotamians spoke of. And the ancient Mesopotamians said that the black bark of the Kiskano tree is similar to the black skin of the gods. The black Kiskano tree is a Salmu image of the gods. Salmu is a Akkadian term that has two meanings. Salmu means both image and it means black. So the Kiskanu tree was the Salmu of the gods, in particular the god in his skin, because the Kiskano tree is black and Salmu is black because the gods are black. The other Salmu or image of the gods was the black bull. The Enki was called Amgig Abzu Z, black bull of the Apsu. The bull, the mighty bull, was the paramount animal attribute, animal metaphor for the king of the gods in ancient Mesopotamia. This god, the god Anu and the god Enki, his firstborn, and they were really one and the same god at two levels of manifestation. Anu or An and Enki, Anu Ea, Anu Enki, they're the same god on two levels of manifestation. Their animal symbol, their animal image was the black bull of the Apsu. The black bull was not just black. The black bull was pitch black as asphalt. And the It is the hide, the black hide, the black skin of the bull, or black hide of the bull. That was a reference to the black skin of the gods. So somebody asked me, do the Anunnaki really look like this? Now, in fairness, this image of this black god is AI generated. The only thing I can say emphatically, yes, the Anunnaki look like this. I can affirm that the Anunnaki had this pitch black skin because the ancient Mesopotamians went out of their way to depict and make it clear that the skin of the Anunnaki gods was not just black, it was pitch black, like the bark of the Kiscano tree and the hide of the black bull. Now, in here, I have chapters on why is the black gods painted red. Some say, well, the gods weren't black, they were red. No, the black gods were depicted red for a very particular reason. I have a chapter in here entitled, Why Are the Black Gods Blue? The gods are depicted blue. It is not the case, family, that Osiris' skin was literally green. No, it was not. It is not the case, family, that Ra of Egypt literally had blue skin. No, he did not. You have to understand the ontology of divinity according to the, not just the ancient Mesopotamians, but the ancient black world. And in particular, you got to understand the mathematics of the black god. The blueness of the gods were blue, not because the skin was blue, the skin was black. The gods, black gods, were depicted with gold and red skin, not because their skin was actually gold and red. We detail the mathematics of the black god and explain why the black gods are sometimes depicted blue, why the black gods are sometimes depicted red, why the black gods are sometimes depicted green, and it is not because their skin is actually blue, their skin is actually green, or their skin is actually red. In every case, the skin is black, but it's a different reason that they are depicted blue, red, and green. All of that we document. And so we invite, as I close, we invite you, family, to get the books, study them, and find fault in them. If you mustn't, put it on the table. That's how we advance the conversation.